Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 21st day of August 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 10, entitled The Opulence of the Absolute, text number 21, on the 21st day of August. Not an accident. At the top of page 444. Adityanam aham Vishnu. Adityanam aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravir Angshuman. Jyotisham Ravir Angshuman. Marichir Marutam Asmi. Marichir Marutam Asmi. Page 444. Nakshatranam Ahang Shashi. Nakshatranam Ahang Shashi. Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravat Angshuman. Marichi Marutamasmi. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravat Angshuman. Marichi Marutamasmi. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Chad. Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravar Angshuman. Marichi Marutamasmi. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Ladies. Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravar Angshuman. Marichi Marutamasmi. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravar Angshuman. Marichi Marutamasmi. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Anyone online?
Adityanam Aham Vishnu.
Adityanam Aham Vishnu.
Jyotisham Ravi Angshuman.
Jyotisham Ravar Angshuman.
Marichi Marutam Asmi.
Marichi Marutamasmi.
Nakhatranam Aham Shashi.
Nakshatranam Aham Shashi. Okay, I'll read the word by words myself. Read along. Adityanam, of the Adityas, Aham, I am, Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. Jyotisham, of all luminaries, Ravihi, the sun. Angshuman, radiant. Marichihi, Marichi, Marutam, of the Maruts, Asmi, I am. Nakshatranam, of the stars, Aham, I am, Shashi, the moon. Krishna says to Arjuna, of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Purport. There are 12 Adityas, of which Krishna is the principal. Among all the luminaries shining in the sky, the sun is the chief. And in the Brahma Samhita, the sun is accepted as the glowing eye of the Supreme Lord. There are 50 varieties of wind blowing in space, and of these winds, the controlling deity Marichi represents Krishna. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by the Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun the moon illuminates, so also do the stars. Since the Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns, but are similar to the moon. Om Jnanatimurandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So now Krishna is going to list some exceptional persons and things and phenomena, and he's going to identify himself with all those. And the quality of this chapter is that these are all personalities and phenomena in the Vedic culture, and so they may not immediately register with us. Although this first one does pretty much. You got the sun and we got the moon. Now, who knows why the sun is sometimes called Shashi? You remember? Because when the Vaishnavas look up at the moon, they see something in the moon, just like the Westerners, they see a deer or something, you know, and they see a rabbit, and a rabbit is the Shashi. So that's interesting. There's also a little drama that adheres to this second paragraph here. Now, this Bhagavad Gita, of course, has a history. There was originally published in 1968, an abridged version. It's actually quite miraculous how that was secured. The Prabhupada was sitting in 22nd Avenue, and there was no money, you know, to publish a book. So they needed a publisher. There was no BBT at that time. So how to find a publisher? So Brahmananda, he went here, he went there. In New York City, there's plenty of publishing houses, you know, but none were interested in a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. So then Brahmananda got a letter from somebody in Macmillan Publisher, which is like a worldwide publisher. And so he told Prabhupada about it, and Prabhupada said, okay, you go up with the manuscript to the offices of Macmillan in New York, Midtown Manhattan, big office, and you find this gentleman, and you present the Bhagavad Gita manuscript, and you'll see, you'll be able to publish it. And Brahmananda was very doubtful, you know, because we're unknown, this little manuscript from this unknown author, you know. So he goes up there, and he finds that the person who wrote to him, I think he was writing about the record that came out. You know, the history was that Prabhupada was able to make a record early on with the few devotees chanting, the Happening album, they called it. There was this fellow, because there was a lot of, you know, I think JFK was, well, no, he was assassinated by then. But there were some politicians and others who would speak, and he was making records not just of music, but also of speeches and other exotic things. So the key was that Prabhupada, that Allen Ginsberg came to know Prabhupada. Allen Ginsberg had gone to India, and he had learned to play the harmonium and to chant Hare Krishna. He didn't know really what it was. He felt some potency, and he liked it, you know. So when he's living in the East Village at that time. That was a happening place, just a few blocks from where Prabhupada had his little storefront. So he heard about Prabhupada. He came to the storefront. He met Prabhupada, and you know, he was fascinated. He was very attracted, and in fact, I think he gave the harmonium, the first harmonium that we had. So the fact that Allen Ginsberg was associated with Prabhupada, he was very famous at that time. Allen Ginsberg is a poet and a beat poet and the whole thing, you know. So that gave Prabhupada, you know, some fame, you know, by association. So I think there was an article in the East Village Other, which is one of the big local paper, and even in the New York Times, they came down. Prabhupada, when he had that kirtan in Tompkins Square Park for 3 hours, you know, he was beating that drum, And the first devotees were dancing, and there were crowds of people all around sitting and clapping, playing recorders, with the Prabhupada said later, with their dogs and with their children, you know. So that was an event. That was an event. And the result was that this fellow, I forget his name, Kalman, I think it was, he asked Prabhupada if he would like to make a record. He said, of course, yes, definitely, we'd like to make a record. So, of Hare Krishna. So, the night before, they didn't have any drums, you know, they had already any instruments, no Orthodox cartels, people would bring their tambourines, someone brought a big stand-up bass, you know, to play, you ever see those? But Prabhupada had this little bongo drum that he was playing. All right, so the night before, a young man came, and he had this drum. It wasn't a Mridanga drum, but it was another kind of two-headed drum. There's a variety of them, you know. And Prabhupada to me said, oh, bring it up here. So, you know, he's sitting, and he began playing it expertly. The devotees practically swooned, you know. It was another amazing thing about Swamiji. So that was, you know, they played it in the kirtan. But then the guy wanted, you know, he was going to leave. So they told him, oh, we're having this recording. The next day was a recording. If you could please bring it back, and we want to use it for the recording. So he was a little cool about it. They figured, oh, he probably won't come back. But he came back, and he loaned that drum. And you hear it on the recording. It's, you know, Prabhupada's playing it expertly. It adds so much. So that was the first, you know, big recording. And eventually that record went overseas. It got in the hands of George Harrison. And he was listening to it like anything, you know. And anyway, it was a big deal. And you know, those the tracks on that record. He had a Hare Krishna mantra and then the address. You know, I think he wrote something, and then Hayagriva edited it, and then he recited that on there. The whole meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra. It's very wonderful. And I can, if you want it, I can give you the tracks. You know, they're available. So anyway, so. Now about this second paragraph. So Hayagriva was the editor, and he thought that people would just, you know, they'll roll their eyes and say, this is crazy. That all those stars out there are little moons reflecting our sun, you know. So he cut it out of the first Gita. It certainly wasn't there in the abridged Gita. Oh, so let me finish this story. So anyway, this fellow heard about the record in Macmillan, and he wrote a letter to the storefront, and Brahmananda got it. And Prabhupada told him to go up there with the manuscript, and said, okay, you know, Prabhupada says to do it. So he went up there, and he found that the guy was just a secretary. He wasn't an executive or anything, you know. So, okay, there he was. So, but Brahmananda was presenting his Gita to them, and some guy walked out of the office who really was a big, you know, head of one of the divisions there. And he heard him discussing the Gita, and he said, oh, do you have a Bhagavad Gita? Yes, we have a Bhagavad Gita manuscript to, you know, to publish. He says, oh, we've been looking for a Bhagavad Gita. Now, they wouldn't publish it unabridged. You know, they weren't ready to commit for a 1,000-page book. They made the limit of 400 pages. So Prabhupada was able to get, you know, some of the purports in, but he wasn't really too happy with that. But then in 72, that was 68 they came out. In 72, finally the unabridged Gita came out, you know. But we didn't have the copyright. That was with Macmillan. And so when we started to find some errors, you know, mistakes in the book, we couldn't fix them. They made a list. And finally, in 77, just before, you know, before Prabhupada disappeared, he gave us a technique to get the copyright. We were distributing them, but we weren't ordering anymore from them. And there was part of the contract was that if we made a big order and they couldn't fulfill it, then we would get the copyright, you know. So we ordered dribs and drabs here and there, you know, so they didn't print anymore. And then finally we made a big order, and they said, okay, you got the copyright, take it, you know. Anyway, that's how we got it. And then, that was, I think, in 77, shortly before Prabhupada departed. And then there was the question, all right, we got to fix all of these mistakes. Because the devotees didn't, you know, there was no skilled Sanskritist, and they would make mistakes in transcribing. Prabhupada had a little dictaphone, you know, a transcribing thing that he would use, which sped it up a lot, but you had to depend on the the transcription. And they probably would quote some verse in Sanskrit, it would just become a blank on the page, so it was a whole thing. So with all of that, still Macmillan Gita was published, but it needed revision. And finally in 182, Jayaweda Swami got the authorization from the GBC and the BBT, and there was the version that we have now was produced. And there are a lot of corrections that were made. All right, so the idea here, okay, we're not sure who the Maruts are, we explained in the purport. But the idea is when you see the sun, when you see the stars, when you see the moon, you should think of this as a manifestation of Krishna. Now we already had this in the 7th chapter, I don't know if you recall. Krishna was saying, Rasoham apsukonteya, Prabhasmi Shashi, here's Shashi again, the moon. Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayo, Rasoham apsukonteya, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayo, Pranabhak Sarva Vedeshu, Shabda Ke Purushagnishu. So he's describing various items that we experience all the time and how I am that because that is my energy. The whole thing in the 7th chapter, he describes his material energies. They're also his energies: earth, water, fire, air, ether, intelligence, ego. And so when our senses interact with those things, that produces a sensation. So the taste of water. So when you drink water, think of Krishna. When you see the sun, think of Krishna. When any sound at all, even that loud sound of the garbage trucks going through the alleyway, all right, that's Krishna. I must have performed some sinful activity, But the point is, the pure devotees, they see Krishna everywhere because they see his energy everywhere, and especially they see in the heart all the time. Yeah? And they're using also part of it is our senses. That's part of the material energy. If we use them for Krishna's service, then we're in a constitutional position. Just like the hand, the hand, we don't think twice about it, if it does what we want it to do, But so the hand is is a very surrendered servant to us. So similarly, we are meant to be like a limb of Krishna, and find out what he wants. We can find out from the Shastra, from the spiritual master. He wants us to chant his name for sure. So if we do that sincerely and try to hear, that's pleasing to Krishna, then he gives us more nectar and gives us more inspiration and gives us more detachment from the things that are keeping us in this world. So this is a list of things that all have some kind of special quality, because this is you see, each one of the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita is called some kind of yoga. Like in the 2nd chapter is Sankhya Yoga, 3rd chapter is Karma Yoga, 4th chapter is Jnana Yoga. And then now we're at the Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhutis are Krishna's opulences, glorious things that appear, that reflect his power, reflect his beauty, reflect his glory. So that's what this is all about. So this long list is all going to be special. There'll be categories, and Krishna is always the best in each category. All right, let's go on. Vedanam samavedosmi. Devanam asmi vasavaha. Indriyanam manaschasmi. Bhutanam asmi chetana. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heaven. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force or consciousness. Purport. The difference between matter and spirit is that matter has no consciousness like the living entity. Therefore, this consciousness is supreme and eternal. Consciousness cannot be produced by a combination of matter. Okay. So, in the living beings, I am the living force or consciousness. So it's described in the 2nd chapter that pervades the body. Avinashi tatadvidi, it's indestructible. And it pervades the body how? Through the bloodstream. And that's why in the parts of your body that the blood isn't there, like your nails, you can cut, there's no pain, you see, or your hair, whatever, But as soon as there's some flow of blood, that means there's a consciousness and there's sensation, there are nerves and everything. So that Krishna identifies himself with that. Now the Samaveda, here it doesn't mention, it comes up later. The Samaveda is filled with all kinds of wonderful songs about Krishna, And I understand that when Garuda is flapping his wings, the Samaveda is being sounded, lot of little cultural things here. All right, let's go on. Rudranam Shankarashchasmi Vittesho Yaksharakshasam Vasunam Pamakaschasmi Meru Shikarinamaham. Of all the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the Lord of Wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vasus, I am fire, Agni. And of the mountains, I am Meru. Purport. There are 11 Rudras, of whom Shankara, or Lord Shiva, is predominant. He is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord in charge of the mode of ignorance in the universe. The leader of the Yakshas and Rakshasas is Kuvera, the master treasurer of the demigods, and he is a representation of the Supreme Lord. Meru is a mountain famed for its rich natural resources. So 11 Rudras. Now, my understanding is that these Rudras, they all manifest, multiple Rudras manifest at the time of destruction. And Rudra means anger, you know. So with their anger, they get ready to destroy, I guess in coordination with Shiva, who does his Tandava Nritya, you know, that dance. So famously, when Brahma was creating everything, the beginning of the universe, he, as I mentioned recently, he had various progenitors. Yeah, sorry, there's one that's a little broken. You better be careful with that. So he had to fill up the universe with the living entities, you know, who had all merged into Mahavishnu at the last cataclysm. So they've been injected into the Mahatattva and everything, and they're waiting, but he's got to arrange it. So he from his mind, he's producing all these entities. And one he produces the 4 Kumaras. And the 4 Kumaras are famous for being full of knowledge, you know. And by their will and yogic power, they were able to keep themselves like a 6-year-old boy, so they wouldn't need to get married, you know. So they refused. Brahma said, all right, I need you to get married and procreate. He said, no, thanks. You know, we're going to keep celibate. So he became very angry. And from, I don't know which one of his 4 heads, between the eyebrows, Rudra came out. He was frowning, you know, and he was angry. So Rudra was created. Shiva was created that way. Text 24. Purodasam cha mukyam mam vidhi parta brahaspatim senani namaham skanda sadasam asmi sagaraha. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief, Brahaspati. Of generals, I am Kartikeya. And of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Purport. Indra is the chief demigod of the heavenly planets and is known as the king of the heavens. The planet on which he reigns is called Indraloka. Brahaspati is Indra's priest. And since Indra is the chief of all kings, Brahaspati is the chief of all priests. And as Indra is the chief of all kings, similarly, Skanda, or Kartikeya, the son of Parvati and Lord Shiva, is the chief of all military commanders. And of all bodies of water, the ocean is the greatest. These representations of Krishna only give hints of his greatness. So you see, he's the best in each category. That's the whole idea, you know. That's the thing. So actually being like right here to the ocean, you know, probably love to walk along the ocean. Sometimes, one time he said something that's very, very memorable. I did get to walk with him once in the park, but not on the ocean. But he said, you hear that? You hear those waves coming in and out, you know? This is the sighing of the gopis in separation from Krishna. Did you ever hear that before? And here we are, right with the ocean. We can take a walk anytime, you know? Okay. Maharshi nam Bhṛgu Giram asmyekam aksharam Yagyanam japa yagyosmi Stavaranam Himālayas. Of the great sages, I am Bhṛgu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, japa. And of immovable things, I am the Himālayas. Purport. Brahma, the first living creature within the universe, created several sons for the propagation of various kinds of species. Among these sons, Bhṛgu is the most powerful sage. Of all the transcendental vibrations, Omkar represents Krishna. Of all sacrifices, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the purest representation of Krishna. Sometimes animal sacrifices are recommended, but in the sacrifice of Hare Krishna, there is no question of violence. It is the simplest and the purest. Whatever is sublime in the worlds is a representation of Krishna. Therefore, the Himalayas, the greatest mountains in the world, also represent him. The mountain named Meru was mentioned in a previous verse, but Meru is sometimes movable, whereas the Himalayas are never movable. Thus, the Himalayas are greater than Meru, because it's Stavaranam, that means they're removable. We learn a lot from all this. So, I always thought it was very wonderful that of Jagyas, he's the Japa Jagya, that's in sacrifice. But of course, in the modern age, after Lord Chaitanya came, it's the Sankirtan Jagya, which is even more prominent. But Japa is very important. There's a wonderful verse. Fortunately, I don't have a poem for it. I don't know if I'll be able to chant it. Got to get Krishna's mercy. And it was written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an impersonalist. He was in charge of the Jagannath Puri temple. And when Lord Chaitanya went there after taking sannyas, as soon as he saw Jagannath, he went into total ecstasy and fell down and was in samadhi, which is, I was hardly breathing, you know. Now, the guards there, they were always getting people walking in and falling down and doing all rolling on the floor. And so they were all ready to hit him with the sticks and carry him out. And Sarvabhauma said, well, no, wait, because he's very beautiful. You know, this sannyasi, 24-year-old sannyasi, 7 feet tall. So he said, wait, he may be genuine. So he saw that he was hardly breathing, and he was kind of worried. So he took a little cotton and he put it up to the nose. And said, oh, he's breathing, you know. But he saw that he was in high samadhi. So he ordered the guards to carry him to his residence. So he carried him to the residence, and eventually Lord Chaitanya's the people who had come from Navadvip with, who he had left behind because Nityananda had broken his danda. You know, this person where he broke the danda on the way. Lord Chaitanya needed a danda for, threw it into the river. So Lord Chaitanya became angry, supposedly said, well, you go ahead or I'll go ahead. I'm not going with you anymore. So you go ahead. So he went to the temple, and they caught up to him, and they came, and they didn't find him in the temple, and they heard that he had fainted and that he was taken to Bhattacharya's house, so they went there, and so they started chanting in his ear, and gradually it revived him. And then there was a whole, interaction with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he wanted to train Lord Chaitanya because he was so young and attractive, He said, how is he going to keep sannyas, for so long? He said 24 years old. So finally it came down to where Sarvabhauma wanted to teach Lord Chaitanya the Vedanta Sutra, because you have to understand that Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, but at that time the only sannyas available was Mayavad. So he actually took Mayavadi sannyas. So he looked like a Mayavadi, but he wasn't acting like a Mayavadi, all this chanting and dancing. So he thought that he would train him up. So he spoke for 7 days. There's a nice painting of it. He spoke the Vedanta Sutra, giving him wonderful little Mayavad interpretations. And Lord Chaitanya just sat there. He didn't speak a word, So finally the Bhattacharya says, well, I've been speaking all of these words, about the Vedanta Sutra, and you haven't mentioned. Are you understanding the meaning? You don't have any questions? So Lord Chaitanya said, I understand the meaning perfectly well. But your explanations are like clouds covering the sun of the Vedanta Sutra. So the Bhattacharya said, well, what's your idea? What's the meaning? So then he started to speak of the Vedanta Sutra. And he completely, blew Bhattacharya away. And at the end of it, he was a Vaishnava because he was giving completely personalist, Vaishnava interpretation. And so the Bhattacharya wrote 100 verses in Sanskrit, like the wind, you know. They call the Su-shloka Shatakam. Wonderful, 100 wonderful shlokas about Lord Chaitanya. So I only know one of them, but it's quite an amazing shloka. Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana Dana Karanim Shoka Moha Loba Tapasava Vigna Nashinim Pada Padma Lubna Bhakta Vrinda Bhakta Dainim Goda Mota Masha Nami Nama Sutra Dharinim. And the reason why I thought of it, because he's chanting japa at the end of this poem. So Lord Chaitanya made a gift of the song of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana Dana Karinim. You understand? Gana means song, Dana means gift, Karani make. He made a gift of the song Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana. And if you accept that gift and you chant it, Shoka, Moha, Loba, Tapa, Sabha Vignanashinim. All negativities in your life, such as lamentation, illusion, greed, Tapa, all suffering will be destroyed. You'll be fine. You know. And for those who are very eager to serve Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, Pada Padma Lubda, they're greedy for the service of the lotus feet. Bhakta Vrinda Bhakti Dayanim, he bestows the highest levels of prema bhakti. Ashu, very quickly and enthusiastically, Ashu, not only I glorify Gaudamutim, that golden formed Lord, who is Namasutta Dharanim. He's holding a knotted string chanting japa in this secluded place. They didn't have so many beads in those days, apparently. When you hear about chanting japa, it's often on this knotted string. And that's what they used in the Soviet jails when they arrested the devotees. They would knot up some string and they would chant. You know, there's a whole book about that. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, because Prabhupada, he has this chanting, the japa yagya, the sacrifice of chanting. Okay, we're going on. Ashvatak Sava Vrikshanam Devashinam Chanaradaha Gandharvanam Chitraratha Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi. Okay. Of all trees I am the banyan tree, and of the sages among the demigods I am Narada. Of the Gandharvas I am Chitraratha, and among perfected beings I am the sage Kapila. Purport. The banyan tree, or Ashwatha, is one of the highest and most beautiful trees. Actually, it should be tallest. I think we fixed that. The banyan tree, Ashwatha, is one of the tallest and most beautiful trees, and people in India often worship it as one of their daily morning rituals. Amongst the demigods, they also worship Narada, who is considered the greatest devotee in the universe. Now, he's known as Devarshi Narada. You ever hear that? Devarshi means the sage amongst the demigods. Thus, he is the representation of Krishna as a devotee. The Gandharva planet is filled with entities who sing beautifully, and among them, the best singer is Chitraratha. Amongst the perfect living entities, Kapila, the son of Devahuti, is a representative of Krishna. He is considered an incarnation of Krishna, and his philosophy is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Later on, another Kapila became famous, but his philosophy was atheistic. Thus, there is a gulf of difference between them. Prabhupada will sometimes mention atheist Kapila. So, this is quite a list. And this banyan tree, now there's some discussion what Ashwatha is really, if it's really a banyan, of course, because when you think of banyan, you think of that tree with the expansion of leaves and the branches, you know. I think there's a nice one in the park. There used to be a beautiful one in the Balboa Park, and we would sometimes go there and have kirtan. But you go to, I remember visiting Navadvip. You know, I used to go to Mayapur all the time. And this huge banyan tree that has just grown and grown and grown. And there was a house that was like almost, you know, covered by the tree, and it's quite impressive, actually. Tree that could grow like that. Okay, horses. Uchai Shrabasam Ashvanam Vidhima Mamitodbhavam Airavatam Gajendranam naranam chanararipam. Of horses, know me to be Uchchaishava, produced during the churning of the ocean of for nectar. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata, and among men, I am the monarch. The devotee demigods and the demons, asuras, once took part in churning the sea. Now, I've been thinking of this, so I'll share it with you. One of the problems of producing the original Bhagavad Gita was the what do you call it? Transcribing of the tapes Prabhupada would record. Because the tapes made it much quicker. Otherwise, Prabhupada was typing with 2 fingers. You know, he typed the whole first canto and the whole second canto and brought them with him. You know, but so he had some help. But interestingly enough, nobody in that first group of devotees, you know, including Hayagriva, who was a big scholar, and Satsrubaraj, they didn't really know how to type that well. So who does Krishna send? He sends, I forget his name now. We'll call him John. John the typist. He wasn't really a devotee. He was a student at some college. And for the summer, he got permission to spend time with the Hare Krishnas, and he would write a paper on it later, you know. So he shows up at the door one day, and he described that, and he said, "Well, do you know how to type?" "Yeah, I know how to type." "You know how to use a transcribing machine," which they had bought for Prabhupada, which he knew, you know, to make the tape, but then what to do with the tape. He said, "Yeah, I've had experience," so it was like a miracle, you know. The only problem is that, you know, if you read these, there's a lot of Sanskrit in here, a lot of strange words. You can imagine what he was typing. A lot of blanks, let's put it that way, you know. So that was one of the problems with the earliest production. And I think there's produced churning of the ocean of nectar. Oh yes, so this is one of the problems. So the devotee demigods and the demons once took part in churning the sea. So this is the 8th canto, I believe. They were churning the sea in order to get nectar. So what are they going to use for a pivot? You know, well, Mount Mandara is another mountain, but the mountain, they had to have something under the mountain, otherwise it was sinking. You know. So Kurma came, you know, the tortoise. Actually, not a tortoise. Tortoises are on land, and turtles are in the waters. Turtle incarnation. So he's there, and he was getting a nice scratching on the back. You know, he's very big. This mountain. So they churned the ocean, and eventually poison was produced first. You know, deadly poison. So Shiva agreed to drink the poison. You know, he's supernatural. So he drank all this poison, but it had an effect on him. He got a little blue line over here. You know, this poison is so great, if we take a little drop of it, we'll die, you know, so he was drinking all this poison. So that happened. Then this Airavata comes out. This is an elephant that becomes Indra's mount. And Uchchaishva, that's the horse, who's another, I forget who rides him. So these all came out before the nectar, and finally the nectar came out, and Krishna appears in Mohini Murti. Did you ever hear about that? A very beautiful female form, you know. And she charmed all the demons. She said, "Okay, sit down in lines, and I'll distribute the nectar." You know, said, "Okay." And they, you know, they were just so entranced with her that they didn't realize that she gave all the nectar to the demigods. And one of the demons, Rahu, he sat down amongst the demigods, and he got one drop. And then they cut off his head or something, I think. Anyway, by that time, you know, he had drunk a little bit, and that part was immortal, because that's what the nectar did. So he became immortal. So then he went off and he became a planet, Rahu planet, which sometimes covers the moon in the eclipse and the whole thing. You know, it's an auspicious planet. This has all happened here. Okay, so we have time for 1 or 2 more. Oh, I didn't read the purport, the rest of the purport. I'm sorry. The 2 animals produced from nectar, they have special significance, and they are representative of Krishna. Amongst the human beings, the king is the representative of Krishna, because Krishna is the maintainer of the universe, and the kings who are appointed on account of their godly qualifications are maintainers of their kingdoms. Kings like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Maharaj Parikshit, and Lord Ram were all highly righteous kings who always thought of the citizens' welfare. In Vedic literature, the king is considered to be the representative of God. In this age, however, with the corruption of the principles of religion, monarchy decayed and is now finally abolished. It is to be understood that in the past, however, people were more happy under righteous kings. So it's abolished, but they're trying to bring it back in certain places. So I definitely aren't going to have any righteous kings, that's for sure. Ayudhanamaham vajram Denunam asmikamaduk Prajanas chasmikandarpa Sarpanam asmivasukihi. Of weapons I am the thunderbolt. Among cows I am the surabhi. Of causes for procreation I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of serpents I am Vasuki. Now just look at the language here. You have the word sarpanam, obviously is a cognate of serpent. The word serpent comes from the Sanskrit sarpanam. Purport: the thunderbolt, indeed a mighty weapon, represents Krishna's power. In Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, there are cows which can be milked at any time, and they give as much milk as one likes. Those are the surabhi cows. Of course, such cows do not exist in this material world, but there is mention of them in Krishna Loka. The Lord keeps many such cows, which are called surabhi. It is stated that the Lord is engaged in herding the surabhi cows. Kandarpa is the sex desire for presenting good sons. I think that presenting has been fixed. It's procreating good sons, I think. Therefore, Kandarpa is the representative of Krishna. Sometimes sex is engaged in only for sense gratification. Such sex does not represent Krishna, but sex for the generation of good children is called Kandarpa and represents Krishna. Now, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, if I can remember this verse. I can't believe it. I can't remember. Anyway, I'll give it the next time. I'll get it next time. Okay. Anantas chasmi naganam Varuno yadasamaham Pitrinam aryama chasmi Yamak sanghimatamaham. All right, I remember the verse, so I'm going to do that before I read this because I might forget it again. It's about surabhis. Yakpadi rakshata surabhi lakshat tadabhisa surabhi mardana raksha mulali vadana kudari shali sadashatu kushalam tapavanamali. This is by Rupa Goswami. So yakpadi rakshata means he's protecting very thoroughly. Surabhi laksha. Lakhs, hundreds of thousands of surabhi cows. But then it says something very shocking. Tadabhisa surabhi mardana raksha. But he's very expert at destroying the surabhis. What? What does that mean? It's a play on words, don't worry. The second line, the surabhi, describes the fear of the gods. Surabhi. He's very expert at destroying the fear of the gods or the devotees, is he? So he protects the surabhi cows, but he destroys the surabhi, or the fear of the suras. Mulari Vadana, he's playing the flute with his lip. Mulari Vadana Kuradi Shali, very expertly. Sadashatu Kushalam Tapavanamali. May that Lord who's wearing a beautiful forest garland bring all good fortune to you. Like that. But isn't that far out? I just thought of it because of the surabhis. Krishna reminded me. Okay. Are we on 29? I think we are. Okay. Anantas chasminaganam Varuno yadasamaham Pitrinam aryama chasmi Yama sanghimatamaham. Of the many hooded nagas are other serpents. Kaliya was one. Of the many-hooded Nagas, I am Ananta. And among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, the Lord of Death. Purport. Among the many-hooded Naga serpents, Ananta is the greatest, as is the demigod Varuna among the aquatics. They both represent Krishna. There is also a planet of Pitas, ancestors, presided over by Aryama, who represents Krishna. There are many living entities who give punishment to the miscreants, and among them, Yama is the chief. Yama is situated in a planet near this earthly planet. After death, those who are very sinful are taken there, and Yama arranges different kinds of punishments for them. More famous as Yamaraj. Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, in the eightfold yoga practice, Ashtanga yoga, the first element is Yama. Yama and Niyama. So Yama is the don'ts, and Niyama is the do's, right? So if you violate the Yama, then Yamaraj comes to get you. Then you have to be careful. Praladas chasmi daityanam kala kalayatamaham mriganam chamagendroham vainateyas tapakshinam. Okay, so this one has definitely been revised. Prabhupada never said that among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. That makes Prahlad into a demon. I'm sorry, he's not a demon. But he is a Daitya. He is a descendant of Diti, who gave birth, you know, to Haranya. And all, you know, the Daityas are generally demons, but not Prahlad. He's just the opposite. So among the Daityas, I am the devoted Prahlad. Not the demons. Among the Daityas, I am the devoted Prahlad. Among subduers, I am time. Among beasts, I am the lion. Among birds, I am Garuda. Purport. Diti and Aditi are two sisters. The sons of Diti are all Adityas, and the sons of Diti are all Daityas. All the Adityas are devotees of the Lord, and almost all the Daityas are atheistic. Okay, right? we changed that. Although Prahlad was born in the family of the Daityas, he was a great devotee from his childhood. Because of his devotional service and godly nature, he is considered to be a representative of Krishna. Very good. All right, so we'll resume tomorrow. I left enough time for at least one poem anyway. I should have put that other one into poetry. Not much time for writing poetry these days. Okay. So let's see what we have. Kunkamakta kanchanam jagava hari gorabha pitta nachintam jaganda kirti nindi sorabha ballavesha suna sava vanchitarta sadika maya matma parapanna dasa dasturarika. I think that is Radhastami coming this month, or is it early next month? Early September. Yeah, okay. So it's almost Radhastami. So this is the first of the songs of the female parrot in the Govinda Lilamrita about Radharani. You may have heard that song. I think Bhakti True Swami made a very nice recording of this many, many years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So the meaning is, her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Shri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. I got the other 8 too. But you have to, oh, we have time for one more. Unfortunately, I forgot the Sanskrit, but I think I remember the English. Her wondrous silken garment shameless splendor rubies can display. She is the blooming garden where the bee of Krishna loves to play. She worships Surya every day so she and Madhava can meet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Now, Radhika is going to become very angry at me if I don't at least chant one about Krishna. His dark complexion mocks mascara, sapphires, and the blackish cloud. His garments shine like reddish rising sun with lightning bolts endowed. With sandal paste enhanced with camphor are his handsome limbs replete. May none the sun bestow on me the service of his lotus feet. So I'll have some more on Monday. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All right, we better hurry now. Otherwise the curtain will, the conch will blow and the curtain will open.